Hello, everyone. I see some familiar faces in the little boxes across the top of the screen. So that's so nice. And it makes me feel so at home to see the same folks back for this Michael's class. So thank you so much for spending some of your evening with me. I know it's late for some of us, but I'm really excited to get started here. We're going to be using the Derwent Chromaflow pencils today. They are a very soft and opaque pencil. So if you suffer from any strength issues such as arthritis, or your arms are just tired by the end of the day, these shouldn't give you too many problems. This is what the case looks like. This is a 24 set. It's pretty reasonable. And I actually find myself reaching for these a lot because it's a smaller set and they blend and layer really well. So I don't feel like I have to have 150 colors in order to create a beautiful painting. So if you're in a budget, you're looking for a smaller set or a travel set, I would really consider these if you're looking for something like that. If you saw any of my posts on social media or my blog today, you know there's a pattern that you can download and print out right on your tanned paper. If you don't have the Strathmore tan paper, you can use any tan cardstock you have. You could even use a brown paper bag if that's all you have available to you, because the important thing is that you create today. So without further ado, I'm going to switch cameras. I also want to remind you that when you finish your beautiful artwork, I would love to see it. So if you want to tag me on Instagram at Lindsay Wyrick, or if you share it online, be sure to hashtag Make It With Michaels and tag Derwent at DerwentArt_US, and all of that information will be in the chat. That would be wonderful, and that lets everybody share in the fun of creating artwork together, because it's such a wonderful community we have here, and I'm so thankful to be part of it. So without further ado, I'm going to change my camera and we can get to drawing. All right, so this is the finished one I've already done, and I thought I'd just set this up here so you can kind of anticipate what we're going to do if you don't recall from the photo. Now, this is so funny. I actually took white transfer paper and I transferred my design onto my tan paper, and then I realized that these pencils are so opaque that I could have just printed it on with my printer and it would have been fine. So if you printed it and your lines are dark, don't worry, it's going to be absolutely fine. I also took a photograph of my setup when I had it ready to go. You can see the mat. It's the same mat that I have here. And the theme was I think like romance with Valentine's Day coming, and I loved this lace. To me, it kind of reminded me of a garter, and I thought it was so lovely with like the pearls and the buttons and the tatting lace, tatting thread rather, that I thought it made a really pretty setup. And let's get going with, we're going to start off with the thread spool here, and we're going to use a few different shades of pencil. I'm going to start with strawberry. And I am going to kind of go in and you know what? I bet it will make more sense for me to have my reference photo right next to my image. I think that will work a little bit better, because then you can look back and forth in case you don't have one printed out. I'm going to start in with this area here, and I'm just going to put that little shadow in there, and that's going to help me kind of divide up my space a little bit. Then I'm going to get that area in here. So you have an outline, but really you're going to be doing a lot of the drawing. Think of the outline as a little bit of a safety net. And then you are, you're swinging on the trapeze, because if you fall, you got a safety net, right? So we're going to add a little shadow here. Now, a trick that I love to do with colored pencils is putting in some of my details first really strong. So my pencil is fairly sharp. Something I'll do if my pencil is getting a little dull and I don't feel like sharpening it again is I will drag it on a piece of sandpaper, and that will give me my point without having to sharpen it. So it can help you conserve a little bit. And also, these are soft pencils, so you probably don't want to do a needle fine sharpen on them. So I'm going to do a little cross hatching. I'm going to start by putting in a bunch of lines going not quite parallel, but they're kind of parallel-ish. And then I'm going to cross over the other way. And what I want to do is get the look of our thread that's kind of crisscrossed at the top of the skein. You don't need too many details, I find, for it to look like a detailed painting. And we also have another little bit of pattern like that down here, just kind of underneath that swirl of thread. So I'm going to do the same thing. A little crisscross applesauce here. And that's pretty much our detail. I'm going to add a little bit of shading towards the bottom of this section where we put our cross hatching. Oh, and don't worry if you feel like you're falling behind when you're coloring, color at your own pace. Don't feel rushed. There will be a replay on the Michael's YouTube channel in usually 24 hours afterwards. And I will also take that video that Michael's posts and embed it in a blog post with all of the supply list and supporting information. So don't fret if you don't have everything ready to go, because I know sometimes it's fun just to watch it through once and then follow along later. Now I'm also doing some lines here, just kind of around the diameter, and I'm kind of adding them here and there, not everywhere. This is just going to give me kind of like those individual threads. Now I'm going to switch, and I'm going to go to this kind of peachy coral color. It's called Blush Pink. And I'm going to put in some more lines like that. Now, all of these lines are going around our skeins. So when you're putting them in, you want them to have a bit of a curve to them. The reason I like to put my darks in first is because it kind of lays it down so that I don't have to try to go over light colors, because when you have a lot of opaque colors, it can be very difficult to lay down your darks because the lights are more strong. They're more opaque. Your white pencil is going to be so opaque, it will gobble up a lot of the other colors.
Lindsay, can you do this on watercolor background on watercolor paper? I don't have any toned paper.
Yes, you can. Go right ahead. You can take what I would recommend is a smoother one, so it's not super rough, or it will chew up your pencils pretty quick. So something that's a hot press or soft press. And absolutely, you know what you could do? You could even base coat in like this a light peach and these light peach, and kind of almost start it off with watercolor, let it dry, and then you will have saved yourself some work with the pencils. Now I'm going to switch to a really pale pink. This is called Salmon. And you can see I really like this pencil because it's getting kind of short. And I'm going to kind of color a little firmly. It's going to blend the colors together. You got to be careful. Don't go don't push too hard like I did there, or you're going to snap the tip if you've got a real sharp point. You don't actually need a really sharp point because those colors you have underneath will kind of spread and streak out on you and give you that thready look. So we're burnishing. It's going to lay down quite a bit of pigment and help blend some of these colors together. You also want to make sure you have a nice smooth surface underneath what you're working on. Having like a special clipboard or something like that that's hard and smooth will work really well for that. Now, because I want this to be a little more peach and these colors blend really well, I'm going to take this flame, which is an orangey color, and I am going to add some strokes in of that. And that's how we combine our colors. Now, you might be thinking, I got the Derwent Coloursoft set of 72. I think I'm just going to go and use the exact color that I need. And I'm just going to color that with a nice coral pink, and I'm going to call it a day. Well, you could do that. However, sometimes I got to say, you work with a limited palette. Actually, most of the time, when you work with a limited palette, your work looks better because you're getting all those nuances of color. Now I'm going to take this orange and I'm going to very carefully trace over my line here of the thread and get that in there. And then I think I'll take a little bit of that light pink and very carefully go over that as well, just so I can kind of blend it into a little bit more of a coral. And don't worry if you have a little bit of, if you use the white transfer and you have a little bit of the white showing through, that'll just look like a highlight. It's not a big deal. All right. Now I'm going to work on some of the detail on the label here. I'm going to take a nice sharp red, and this is Scarlet, and I am going to draw I'm just going to pretty much go over my lines as best as I can. Now, generally, if I have text, I won't worry about getting the text exactly. I will just kind of eyeball it. I can do the 60 YDS pretty well. And I could take this Denim, which is kind of a navy blue, and I will write the star, but I'm going to omit those tiny little writings in there. If you want to do like a little squiggle, you can, but I wouldn't try to cram too much in. I'm just do a little squiggle for that little bit of writing there that I can't really make out. And I'm going to very carefully try to get a neat bit of blue outline I can see around the edge. Now there is a little bit of a toning, and I could have done that first, but then I might not have been able to stick my letters down. So I'm just this is very little pressure. In fact, I could hold it way at the end of my pencil because that's how little pressure I'm putting in there, just to give that a little bit of an antiquing color. And then I'll add a little bit of white in the star area. But not too much because our paper's tan, so we already have that color down pretty well. Now I'm going to take a little black, and I'm going to put my darkest shadow for the whole spool, which is going right in here. And I'm going to try to overlap the color head in the thread because the shadow is right on the thread. So I want to be able to see those thread colors through there. And if it looks a little too garish, I'll go over with my pink and just mellow it out a little bit and blend it in. I'm not going to do the cast shadows yet. We'll hold off on those. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on these pearls. I am going to take platinum, and I am going to kind of base coat the entire pearl with very little pressure. I don't want to fill up the tooth. That's why I use a little bit of pressure so that I don't lay so much down that I can't get lights and darks on top. Now I'm going to take my white, and I'm going to just kind of work in a circle here. This is the area around the hole, really reflecting beautifully. Do a little highlight there. And then this actually has a reflection on the bottom. So the bottom of the pearl, which may seem like counterintuitive, why do we have this bright highlight in the bottom? But we do. Put that in there. And we're going to grab the black, and we're going to very, very carefully do a little bit of a hole. And by having that gray underneath, because we don't have a bunch of grays in here, we've got the platinum, black, and white. We need to mix our gray tones. So by putting that base coat of gray first, it keeps us from overdoing it. And I am going to do a little cast shadow under here. Now, the neat thing about when we went in with our white and we put down that bright highlight, that kind of acts like a resist. Like if we were doing a watercolor and we put wax on our paper to resist it, that's what that does for us. And that is going to prevent that black from sticking really well in the pearl. And then we get that really nice, nice shadow there. I'm not going to do too much because I am going to put some brown and spread it out with a little bit of brown, but that's just how we can go about doing that. Now I do need some more darker colors, darker gray in the pearl. So I'm going in very, very lightly and adding some of that in. I mean, this is barely any pressure at all. I'm not really putting pressure. I'm just kind of dragging it across. And then I can go over with my gray to smooth it out a bit. And I can add a little bit more white if I want. Now, something I can also do is if I see that it's next to something that might be casting a reflection, I can do that as well, but I'll wait till I get other elements in before I add any reflections to it. We'll do the same thing to this other pearl here. We're going to start off with our gray, which is platinum. Oh, one of the other things that I wanted to mention, if you have, say you have Coloursoft or you have Derwent Lightfast, you can go by color names. You can look at the supply list and you can find the colors in those lines. They use, not every set will have the same assortment of colors, but they do use the same names over and over again. So if you have Coloursoft or you have Lightfast, they're both very soft, opaque pencils. You can do this project and just follow along with those, with the names. The numbers sometimes differ because I think they number them based on what size set they are, if I'm correct. That's what I've noticed. But you can definitely use one of the other lines from Derwent, and it kind of takes the guesswork out. I know a lot of people wait to see if there's going to be a bigger size set before they invest in pencils. So if you've been on the fence and waiting for a larger set and you've got the Coloursoft, use those, they'll be fine. Adding a little bit of black. Blending in with the white. The pearl got a little lopsided, so I'm just kind of spreading it out a little bit. Oh, I like the way that looks. So I'm gonna do that on this one too. Oops, pressed too hard though. Got to be careful about that though. And I'm just gonna put a little bit of a cast shadow under here that I will go over with a little bit of brown because we're working on tanned paper, the brown will make a little more sense. But I just wanted to get that in there. We don't see the hole on this one. I do on my reference photo, but I liked it better on my drawing where I didn't have the two holes going the same way. It's just when I set it up for the reference photo, they only wanted to stay still if I put them that way. So that's why I didn't put a hole. That's why I'm not doing a hole on this, but my reference photo has it. All right, now let's work on the ribbon. Ribbons are really fun to draw. We're going to start by base coating it with the blush pink. And what you want to do is try not to impart any lines. And try to go for an even coverage. This is a fairly smooth paper, so you shouldn't get a lot of grain. Ribbons are so fun to draw and they're very easy. And anytime you crisscross them like this, you get a really nice dimension. You can also go ahead and base coat this one if you want. I find when the smoother the paper, the less you have to worry about your application technique. And also tone paper is so forgiving because you don't see, like if your application isn't perfect, you're not really going to notice it as much. It's like on a stark white paper there. but these lay down really well. If you're using a harder pencil for whatever reason, you may find that you do need to maybe do little ovals, overlapping ovals to get a good coverage. Or it might take a couple layers, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just preference of what you prefer to use. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now I'm going to take magenta. I think I used magenta there. And I am going to start adding in some of my darker areas. So up here behind the spool, it's going to be a little darker. Also a little darker behind these buttons. Oh, a little darker here. I put more of a twist on my drawing than on my photo. Some darker under these buttons too. I'm going to try to go around that thread. I don't want to cover up the thread. And you can darken up this area here. With a still life, a lot of times you'll have a lot of little soft shadows from things that are overlapping other things. Now we're going to go in with the salmon color, and we're going to add that where we didn't add the magenta. It's going to lighten it up and make it a little bit more opaque. And now we're going to go over it with our blush pink again. And this time we want to add a little more pressure, and we're going to blend. And this is called burnishing. I'm going to do the, when you're burnishing, it's nice if your pencil is not really sharp because it can snap. So I'm doing the majority of the burnishing, and then I'm going to sharpen. So if you have headphones in, I'm going to be using my sharpener in just a second. So I just want to warn you so you can take your headphones out, because that will probably be loud, even though my sharpener is on the other side of my desk from my mic. I'm going to sharpen that real quick. Actually, a little sharpener because I want to cover over these white lines from my transfer paper. You turn your pencil as you go, you will retain that point longer, so you won't have to sandpaper it or sharpen it too often. All right, now we're going to take our white pencil, and you don't want this to be super sharp because we are going to be burnishing with this. And we are, remember how I said the white can be the strongest color when you have a really opaque set like this? See how it even lays down on top of the burnished color? We're putting that in the highlight areas. And that kind of helps give you that satin look. I'm going to go back to the magenta and deepen my shadows. This magenta holds a nice point because it's a little bit firmer. I find the darker colors that are like a little bit more transparent seem to hold their points a little bit better. Back in with the pink and then kind of bridge the gap between the highlights and the shadows. You can add in more white any place you need it to. Like I think I need some white right in there. So I will go back in. Whites blend really well. And you can keep working those three colors back and forth and until you really like the satiny look of it. But I think that looks pretty good. And of course, take as much time as you need, and we will have a replay for you in a day or two. So you don't have to be stressed out. Art shouldn't be stressful. All right. And then if you want to further shadow that, you can go in with like a like that strawberry, which has a little bit of a, it's a red with a little bit of a brown undertone, and it does deepen things up really nicely. And since we've used it in the thread and we're going to use it in other portions, it will work well in the ribbon and very little pressure. That's just like, oh, I want to deepen that up a little bit, give it a little more shadow. That strawberry is going to work really well for you. All right, now I want to work on this button here because this button is underneath this button. So if I do this one, then that one, it would just go in a little bit nicer order. And I'm going to start by using, and what I do when I'm looking at something and I don't have exactly the right color, I say, what is it most? It's most orange. And then what is it second? It's second yellow. Then what is it third? It's third kind of like white. And then I'll layer those colors. And then if I need to adjust, well, maybe I need a little bit of a like an ochre color here, like golden sun. So that's what I do when I'm stuck, when I don't have the color that I need. There are so many colors in the world. Nobody can have a pencil that matches every single color exactly. So you just learn how to layer it. And what I ask myself is, what is it most like? Now, when I'm applying the color here, I can save myself a little bit of time by adding my shadows, by just putting in the color a little bit more strongly in those areas where it's darker. And that would be where it's up next. You've got like a button overlapping it, the edges, where it's kind of like hiding away from the light. And then after I do that, I'll just go, oh, in the holes. And then after that, I'll just do a very light base coat. And this is like, I'm just barely holding onto the pencil. I'm not putting any pressure in there. I'm letting the pencil do the work. If your shoulders hurt, if your wrist hurts, if your hand hurts, you're putting too much pressure on. If you struggle with colored pencils, but you love the look of it, one way you can enjoy it with less stress is to do your first layer with markers. So whether, I think alcohol markers work pretty well for that. You can also do watercolor if your paper is, like this paper will work with alcohol markers. I don't know if this would work so hot with watercolors, but you could start off with watercolor paper like the person asked earlier. Oops. A little bit of yellow. And then we're going to try blending with the white and see what we get. I'm going to start in first with the highlights, those really bold white areas.
Lindsay, what color were you using before the white?
That one that snapped on me is amber gold, and I am
okay. Thank you.
Sharpen that one up. Yeah. This button kind of has a little bit of a mother of pearl finish. So by leaving it kind of streaky as I go in here and add my white, it does kind of give it that pearlescent. I'm going to use a salmon color because I think the salmon would also be a nice color to help mellow out the orange and the yellow, while also helping me blend the colors together. I'm gonna also add some magenta in there because I did it on my other painting and I really like how it looked. Gonna add some in the buttonholes. Add a little bit around the edges and in the shadows. That's a great thing about art is that you can change your setup a little bit. You can tweak the colors so that it looks really good with all the other things in your still life. Adding some pink to blend out that magenta. And I'm gonna go back in with the white and overall just kind of refine my highlights and lighten it up a little bit. And we are burnishing. Now, sometimes after you've burnished, you've laid down that really heavy application of colored pencil. A day or two later, you might notice a haze on your painting, and that's called wax bloom, and it's nothing to worry about. There's a couple ways you can deal with it. You can either wipe it away with a soft cloth. Just don't smudge it too hard because you could smear, or you can spray it with a little fixative. I haven't noticed the Chromaflow to have a wax bloom problem, but they are very soft, waxy pencils. So it stands to reason you could end up with that if you've had a really heavy burnished amount of colors. Now for this button here, I'm going to start off with strawberry and I'm going to put in a light base coat. And I also, at the end of the picture, I go through and I start, and I'll refine my shadows and add cast shadows and stuff too. So I would say we're leaving everything at like 90% done. We'll, you know, circle back to things. I forgot to mention, if you do have questions as we're going along, you can put them in the chat and Molly will ask them to me as as I'm working. So if I forgot to cover something or I got you stumped, please pop it in the chat. I'm going to preserve my little highlights in there. It's just how this one is tipped a little bit different than the other button. So the highlight is not on the same portion of the button. It's nothing to worry about. We'll add some orange. Now, when I'm coloring this, I'm also, I am coloring with the contour of the button, just like I did with a pearl and just like I did with the spool of tatting thread. You can see how like the highlights kind of follow that sheen. I'm going to go and put those buttonholes in though before I get too carried away. And I'm going to also reinforce these up here. And that looks just way too black, so I'm going to go over the buttonholes with strawberry. And let's see, I think I'm going to go, oh, you know what, I want to add a little magenta to that one too. Oops, pressed too hard. I'm just saying how strong that one was, but you still can't press really hard with them. Right, we go back in with the strawberry. I almost see some brown undertones here. I think I will grab a little bit of the raisin, which is kind of a reddish brown color, kind of like a maroon. Sometimes I'll tip my work upside down because, man, that looks a little flat on that side to me, so I'm just gonna round it out a little bit more. Don't be afraid to fix anything that doesn't look quite right. All right, I'm gonna blend over with my white again. And this will streak some of the colors together and hopefully give us that iridescent finish, shiny finish that it has. I'm gonna do this edge with the raisin. I don't think I burnished much in the middle, so I think I'll do the middle with the pink. All right, we'll let that one sit for a bit. And let's start on the lace, because that we have another button, but that one's pretty simple. And I want to get going on the lace because that's probably one of the more complex portions here. Let's see if I can get both of those in the frame. I think I can. Remember, you can move your captions if you need to. We've got a pearl there. I'm just going to omit that for right now. Just kind of work around it. So this is kind of, I'm going to sharpen this. So if you have headphones, you'll want to pop them out for a second. I don't want a super fine point. This is pretty fine. I don't want it super fine because I don't want to snap it. So what I'm going to do is just kind of loop-de-loops. We are giving the appearance of lace. So we're just going to do loop-de-loops. We're going to let that toned paper save the day. If you painstakingly drew a lot of detail, you could just go over your dark lines. If you're working on white paper, you could do this in whatever color you want. You could do it in a different color so it shows up. If you did it with like gray, or I'm just going to see what else is in the Chromaflow set, because I think there might be like a really soft blue. You could do it in a little pressure and use the light blue or this turquoise green. That would be really pretty too for the lace. And the blue will make those peachy colors really pop. So just a little tip for you if you're working on white paper that isn't toned. You're going to start with the loop-de-loops. Then the best thing here is just to kind of make a pattern and repeat it. So I am following this little pattern here. I'm just doing kind of like squiggly loops over the lines. Now, if you can press a little bit, it's going to be helpful, because what we can do is when we go in to put our shadowing to make it stand out more, we can just scumble over with some brown and it's going to skip on these white areas, which is what we want, because that's going to make it look really lacy, really detailed, and we don't have to do much work. So I always, when I draw these, I think of a person with crazy hair. And like maybe their fists up underneath their cheeks. And it just helps me draw my little design here. But it's pretty much all scribbles. And I'll show you just like the finished work. It's just scribbles, guys. It's nothing. It looks detailed, but it's not. It's just scribbles. If you want to use a reference photo on your own and you want to get really detailed with it, that's awesome. Totally go for it. You could spend 20 hours and get every little detail in there. But we are limited to an hour here, so we're going to do some little cheats. You know, in this band here, I'm going to start by doing just kind of like loop-de-loos all the way along the bottom and the top line. I'm turning my pencil so I can have a sharp corner that will bite into the paper a little bit. Not using a ton of pressure, but I do want to lay down enough of the waxy pencil so that I can have a little bit of a resist. And then I'm going to make ovals. And look at this, this is all I'm doing. I'm just going to do a row of ovals. As you get to the outside edge of your designs, let it fade away. Okay, so it's not, you don't have a hard edge. So it just kind of like has this romantic vignette look to it. I was kind of going to say you could finish the lace up on your own, but it's honestly so much easier if you get all this white in first, and then we do the scumbling over with the brown, and then it's like voila lace. It's much easier. And then I would go to this top edge and I would again just do the loop-de-loops just along this wiggly line that we had on our pattern. And then you're just gonna kind of mirror what you had on the bottom side. So we had the crazy hair guy here. That's what I call that part of the pattern. We're gonna do the crazy hair guy up here, just backwards. As Ginger Rogers said, just backwards and in high heels, right? She did everything Fred Astaire did, but she did it backwards and in high heels. And that's what we're doing here. We're doing it backwards. If it helps, turning your work right, like upside down, so you're doing the same design, go ahead and do that. It's totally up to you. I find little tricks like that kind of be really helpful. And don't try to be too perfect, because if you start putting this in real perfect, you're going to notice it when something isn't perfect. You just want to have a loose design here. And over here, where I'm getting to the edge, I'm just going to do random little squiggles. Over here, we're getting a little bit to the edge. I'm going to do some random little squiggles. And then if I feel like I've got a lot of space here where nothing's happening, then I'm going to do some, just try to fill in that pattern. I'll just put like a little squiggly triangle in there. You know, do some little dots. Dots of 3. I also think we got to put that pearl in before we get any further, and we're also going to want to put some of that little loop of ribbon going in there. Let's do the ribbon first. It's not going to be fancy. We're just going to take our pink and we are going to just kind of pretend. Let's see, our ribbon is going to go like that. So I've just drawn that really light. I'm going to draw a little darker than you need to, just so you can see where it is. Okay, give myself a little guideline. Then I am going to very, very lightly, look at this, use the edge of your pencil, and you're going to fill in that little loop that you made, that little line, that little guideline. And it's for the most part going to just pretend like that. It's going to act like that white is just not there. It's going to skip over it. And doesn't it look like that ribbon is just naturally behind that lace? Isn't that crazy? How cool is that? You just learned a magic trick, friends. Okay, now we're going to take some brown. This one is natural brown, so you want to use this one instead of Raisin. Raisin is warmer and it really imparts that rusty color to it. You don't want that. You want a very neutral brown. So go for natural brown, and you're going to use it on its edge. Yeah, just be careful. Don't color over the pearl. That's the only thing. what we're going to do is very, very lightly scumble. Now, scumbling is when you're just kind of using a random pattern, very little pressure, and you are going over this. So what this is a very soft shadow that is underneath the lace. The lace isn't going to give a hard shadow. The lace is going to just diffuse the light. So all you see is a very just breath of a shadow under there. And we're using so little pressure. We're using the edge of the pencil. So it's only going to grab that untouched paper between the white that we put down there. And as you fade up, as you come up to the top of the lace, just let it fade out to nothing. Okay, so very little pressure. You can always go in and add more, but you can't really take it away because you've got other elements there. So you want to keep it real light. And a little bit heavier as you get into the center, more dense area of the lace.
Hey, Lindsay, what technique did you call that?
Scumbling.
Scumbling. Okay.
Yep. Now, if you feel like it's too linear, you're making a pattern, turn your paper and just keep doing the same thing. That way you won't end up with a bunch of lines. And I think this is such a fun technique because it's like everything just appears. All your hard work pays off at once. Now that technique where we drew with the white, think about that next time you're drawing a kitten or an animal and you want to get whiskers or you want to do highlights in hair. If you put that light down first and use a bit of pressure, you can go over it with other colors and the other colors will skip over it. And it's such a wonderful technique, especially when you want a fine detail like that in colored pencil. I know a lot of beautiful colored pencil artists and they spend weeks on their paintings, but I'm a little too impatient for that. And I tend to find all the tricks that you can find. And I like that. I think it's because I'm primarily a watercolor artist. So working with colored pencils, I love it, but I tend to use it with my watercolors kind of to pull out the stops at the end to get a little more detail or a little more body to my color. And because of that, I tend to do a kind of a cheater approach to some of these techniques, but I just love the way it looks. I love the texture. I love to see the artist's hand. Here, I'm just doing a little cast shadow underneath the lace. I'm not going too dark. As we get to the edge, we're just kind of skimming the edge here. And very faded out as you get further away. Now, while we're at it, we're going to take this brown, this natural brown, and we are going to start adding our shadows under our objects. We're going to do the cast shadow for our spool of thread. We're going to start it dark up where it touches the spool. So with shadows, when it touches an object, if you look here, it's darkest where it's touching the object, then it diffuses out. Same there and there and there. Here where the lace is, where the shadow is, the lace is touching the paper, it's darkest there, and then it diffuses out as the lace rises, as it gets further away from the source casting the shadow. So while you're doing your shadows, where you do want to take your time and make sure you're getting them properly placed. I'm just going to work a little quicker because of our time constraints here tonight, but you just want to know you can always go back in and you can darken up those areas where the shadow is coming closer to the object. You can make that little bit of a lace pattern into your shadow as well. And it totally depends on how far you want to take it. It's going to look pretty if you keep it vague. It's going to look pretty if you do the detail. It's completely up to you. I'm going over my black shadows here and I'm diffusing them out a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and put the shadow under this button, even though we don't have our button here. But you would do that with the same technique that you did with the other buttons. I want to make sure we got to do every portion of this, or at least every type of different thing. Now here, our shadow is gonna skip. It's going to start off here on this side of the ribbon, and then it's kind of going underneath the ribbon here, and then it's going to come out here on this side of the ribbon. I would start with real light shadows, and then as you evaluate your picture, you can go in and add them darker. Let's see. Hold them. My photograph is a little bit different than my drawing, and my original drawing is different than both the photograph and this drawing here. There we go. Our shadow is going to be thick, thin, and thick. And just kind of fade out. Now the thread shadow is super fun because you just are going to kind of get this undulating line that is going to connect at points, and then it's also going to break apart, and it's going to connect again, and it just kind of is just really fun. Just go real light with that, and it's going to look realistic. Okay. I see it's about 8:54. Would it be okay if I went about 15 minutes over, Ash, or are we at a tight 9 p.m. deadline? Or Molly, if you could answer me, if it'd be okay to go a few minutes over.
I'm fine with that. That's no problem here.
Okay, great. Then I think we can finish up everything. I just didn't want to keep Ash and Molly and the crew late. All right, and you can deepen any of these shadows with the black too. Just use a really light hand if you decide you want to do that. Let's go on and do that button because that's a little bit more different. The pearl is exactly the same. I think we can get it all done. But we're going to start. I'm actually going to take that raisin color before we do anything else, and I'm going to put in the buttonholes. And we are going to do this thick edge. You want your pencil kind of sharp for that. I use my Chromaflow pencils during the Inktober challenge, which is you do a drawing in ink every day, but I love to use the pencils over my markers. And so I had a little bag. I put like a bunch of pastel toned markers, and I put my Chromaflow pencils, and I put a few grayscale markers and some fine liners. And that was such an awesome little bag to have together. And I just had such a ball with that. And I use a lot of my pencils right down to almost 9. I'm going to need to get myself another set here. They're so fun. But I love that it had such a nice variety, and I didn't feel like it was a big ordeal, because when you're drawing a new thing every single day, it can be very overwhelming. So being able to simplify your process a little bit was really, really helpful. And I really got to know these a lot during that month. All right, so we did the raisin, we did the orange, we added some pink, and now we're going to highlight with our white. And honestly, I really think that's about all we need. I do like the magenta in those buttons, so I think I will add a smidgen of that in there, but I think that's really all we need for that. Let's do that pearl up there. We'll start again with our base of platinum. I keep wanting to say oyster because that's the one in the Derwent Lightfast that I really like. Oyster white is pretty. And then we're going to go in with, we'll throw in a white around the hole. We'll also get a nice bright white kind of moon shaped crescent around the edge. Then we'll go in with our black. You could even add some like of that denim color in the pearls too. I think that would be pretty. If you feel like you need a little bit more depth of color. Actually, might be nice. I might do that on the other ones. Something else you guys might want to consider while you're working on this piece, sitting flat. You generally, if you're doing colored pencil, you're often sitting flat at a table, and sometimes it can throw your perspective off. So it wouldn't hurt to like get up, stretch your feet every once in a while, stretch your legs, and set that up on a shelf or something so you can stand back and look at it straight on. Because when you're working for a long time on a painting flat at your desk, it can really skew, and things like you could have stuff that is like a circle, but then when you're just drawing it, looking at it from the same perspective, and then when you pick it up, it's all wonky and like an oval. So that is a good practice to get into. I think we'll put some of that denim color in here. And on these two, that blue, anytime you can add blue on something where you have a lot of orange, they're complementary colors, and they just make the others look better, look more vibrant and pop. And blend in with my platinum color.
Lindsay, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
Maggie's paper is toned gray. What color shadow would you recommend for her under
Tone
her
gray?
lace?
I would probably just use the black, and you could use some denim if you feel like it needed more depth.
Thanks.
Yeah, just a real light hand on that. Build it up as you need to. Good question. And I think I might add a little bit of peach here on this pearl, because I would think it would be getting some of those colors in there. So I'm just going to add a little of that. And I think I'll add a little bit to this one too. And maybe a little bit of the more orange color on this one, just to pick up some of the color from the spool. And I would put a little bit of peach in there, pick up some of the ribbon colors very faintly. Okay, I'm going to sharpen my black. So if you have headphones in, you'll want to take them out for a sec. All right, we just need to add some little touching the object hairline line, just kind of add the dark and then fade it out. Especially on any of these really solid objects. Solid objects are going to cast a more strong shadow, more opaque shadow. So we're at the point where we're almost done. We're refining our values. I do need to go a little darker underneath this pearl. And this would be weighing down that lace rather. So it's going to make the shadow under here a little bit darker, because this lace is going to be touching the table. And then shadow right on top of that ribbon from that lace. Edge of the ribbon can have a little bit of a sliver of black shadow there where it's touching the table. It's also a good way to help you get your definition back. If you've lost your edge and it's gotten a little smudgy, gotten a little rough, you can bring it back. Even add a little bit of shading with the black right in the spool. Go easy with it though, you don't want a ton of that. A little bit of shadow from these buttons. Buttons are hard and opaque, solid objects.
Hey, Lindsay, someone was asking about what colors you used in the pearls again.
I started off with a base coat of platinum, and then I used white for the highlights, and then I used black for just kind of darkening the grays to mix. And then I used a little bit of the blush pink and a little bit of the flame, the orange color there, just to pick up some of the other colors that would be reflected in them. Okay, I think I'm going to add a little bit of magenta to my spool here because I feel like it needs a little bit more pop. And a lot of this stuff it's like cooking, you know, season it to taste. If you don't like magenta, but you like orange, or you like that strawberry red and you prefer that, go with what you prefer. You could do this in a whole other color scheme if you want to. There is no rules. I'll do a little touch of black behind that button where it's touching that ribbon. And I'm going to grab that natural brown again because I feel like I just need a little bit more shadow under the lace, maybe even put a little bit of the pattern that you see. Don't get too carried away. I would just kind of keep it a little squiggly. You can go inside some of these little circles here and add a little bit darker shadow if you want to. You're going to have a little more shadow towards the bottom than the top because the top part of the lace is off the surface more. It wouldn't like really block or diffuse much light. It kind of needs to be close to the surface for it to react with the surface.
Hey, Lindsay, do you have a favorite sharpener you're using? It doesn't have to be Derwent.
The one that I find that any electric sharpener works really well because I have a preference for soft pencils. I just have this little electric jar link here. Now, because I love Derwent, I make sure I get one that will go to 8 millimeters. Otherwise, it's not going to sharpen all your Derwent pencils. So you want to make sure like this will fit the drawings. It is a tight fit. You don't want to be any smaller than that if you have a variety of Derwents. But I like this one because it does accommodate all my Derwents. And then these are a little bit smaller and it will take these without rocking them. The key is you don't want you don't want to move the pencil when you're sharpening. That's why I generally don't use a handheld sharpener because I'm not very good. I'll rock the pencil by mistake and snap my lead. So that's what I've had the best luck with. Some people prefer a hand crank sharpener, but I've never really had many of them. So I probably never had a good one to use. But electrics just work really well for me because I'm not very disciplined about turning the sharpener and not the pencil, which is what they say you should do. I'm just deepening the shadows on the ribbon with a little bit of the Raisin. And I think I'm going to call that done. Do we have any questions before we sign off today?
I think we've been answering most of them as we go. So everyone's been very complimentary. So thank you, Lindsay.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I did have a good time drawing with you guys today. And I can't wait to see what you've created. So I know it might take a little bit longer than the live stream to finish up. Oh, Melinda's holding hers up. That's really great. Oh my goodness. If you want to hold your work up, I'll try to scroll through and see. Oh, that turned out so pretty. You are fast too. Is that like a full sheet of paper? Holy cow, you did a big one. That's awesome. Oh, wow, that looks great on white, and it looks like you used some black on the lace or navy or the denim color. That looks really good. Oh my gosh, great job, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's see, we've got Gwen. Let me see yours. Let's see, I gotta move the chat box because that's getting in my way. Can you hold it up a little bit higher, Gwen, so I can see that? Oh, it keeps disappearing. Oh, nice. That came out so good. Thank you so much for sharing. Who else? Let's see. Nicole, were you holding yours up? Oh, that's really pretty. Now, looks like you're on toned gray paper, and that looks really nice. That's really pretty. And I love how you shifted it and did more of like those raspberry pink colors. Let's see, Anastasia. Oh, that turned out beautiful. Now, is that one on white paper? That turned out really good. I like that. Oh, so nice. Another one on white paper. Gosh, I really like these on the white paper. That looks great, Vida. Or Vidal, that's very nice. Oh, look at that. I love how bold your lace is. You're not going to have much left to do on that. Awesome job. Eileen, let's see. Oh, that looks really nice. That white really shows up on the tone tan. The buttons look great. Excellent job. And Dawn, oh, that's nice. That looks like you used the watercolor paper. That texture really looks pretty, I think. And Donna, nice job. Oh, that's so pretty. I love how everything overlaps in the strong shadows. And Brenna, oh, beautiful. I love the yellows. You have like a more of a warm yellow tone to that. It's so tangerine and pretty. Excellent job, Ravonda. Oh, I love the fatter ribbon. That really gives you room to shade. And Kathleen, that's so pretty. Oh my gosh, looks like an illustration. Another one on the gray. That looks great. I love the shine on the ribbon. You really did a great job on that. And the shine on the thread too. It looks so pretty. T.S. Williams. Elizabetha Benz. Let's see. We've got gorgeous detail on that lace. My goodness. How'd you have time to do that? Let's see. Joey, that looks really pretty. That looks kind of gray too, the paper. And we got Kathy. Excellent job. Oh my gosh, you guys are fast. Wow. That looks so pretty, Linda. Thank you so much for sharing. That's Stephanie. Oh my gosh, you really took that one to completion in so little time. Beautiful job. Cassie, that looks really nice. I love the strong shadows under the lace. It can be really hard to go for it. Oh, nice job, Christine. Lots of detail. I love how delicate the lace is. It looks almost satiny. Dorothy, very pretty. I love that yellow button and the more like peachy color to the ribbons. Very pretty. Gigi, that looks so nice. Oh, you're off to a great start. The buttons and the ribbon look so pretty. Oksana, oh, that's nice. I love the cluster of buttons and the pearls, and the lace turned out great. Man, you guys are doing so good. Stephanie, excellent job. I love the shine on the buttons. Mary, that looks fantastic. I love how you really brought out the detail in the lace, even though it was on a really, really light paper. Good job. Oh, that's pretty, Natasha. It looks like watercolor. Did you use watercolor pencil on that? Looks awesome. And let's see, David McCall's account. We've got gorgeous. I love the shine on the button. It really looks like mother of pearl. You did an excellent job there. Get Joyce, very nice. I love those soft pink tones, very delicate, very ladylike and pretty. Nice job, Hema. I love the, it almost looks like a skein of yarn where it's got like almost a soft tactile fluffiness to it. And Swana, oh, that looks really pretty. I love how the lace, you can see it behind the ribbon behind the lace. Great effect there. Excellent job. Carly, that looks so pretty. Great shadow under the lace. Excellent job. Oh, Gwen asked me why I didn't use alcohol marker. You know what? I was going to use it to blend out the shadow, but I didn't even need it. So I hope you didn't buy one special for that, but that's what I was going to do. I was going to use the, I was going to use that to blend out my, my shadow. And do we have any other artwork, or are we all, I see Carly's.
I think there's a couple more.
Okay. Well, let's see, Jeannie. Let's see. That looks really pretty. I love the detail on the buttons. I love the crisp edges. Nice job.
I think we got through everybody. If you want to show your work and you haven't yet, just please hold it up. I'm just going through to look at everybody's video. So it looks like everybody's all set.
Oh, right. Okay. Swan is holding hers up. Did we see hers before?
I think we did.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Can you spotlight me real quick? I'm gonna, because Gwen popped in that question. I'm gonna show you what I would use the marker for. I apologize for missing that, but it'll just take a second. I'm gonna switch my camera. And if you could spotlight me again, I will
Yeah.
show that really quick.
Oh, I'm trying to spotlight you here. Let's see here. There we go.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Gwen, for reminding me. I completely flaked out. So generally you can get a clear alcohol marker. If you don't have an alcohol marker, you can take one of those pointy Q-tips they sell for like makeup application and dip it in the strongest alcohol you have, like 90% isopropyl alcohol. You can use either a chisel tip or a brush tip. They will get stained and they will look funky like mine does and doesn't hurt him one single bit. And what you use it for is anytime you want a smoother blend, maybe not, I probably don't need it so much under the lace, but say I want a smoother blend under here. Like I don't feel like burnishing, maybe my wrists are sore, I don't want to deal with it. You can go over it with your alcohol marker. Now it looks real dark right now. That's just because the paper's wet. And that's going to break down your colored pencil. And it's going to give you a softer blend. Now as you see that drying, it's going to lighten up. So don't fret, don't freak out if you start putting that on your paper and you're like, oh no, what have I done? I've made a terrible mistake. No, it's going to lighten up and it doesn't wrinkle your paper because it's alcohol and it just smooths things out. You can also use odorless mineral spirits. You could use any sort of solvent really, but this is just so convenient and it's very subtle. So if you do it and you're like, oh, I don't know if I like that, it's really, you could go right over it again with your pencil once it dries. It doesn't really give you a really strong effect. And you also don't need the bazillion layers that you need to do odorless mineral spirits. I just find it to be a very nice way to get a soft blend. Now, if you're, after you do that, if you're like, oh no, I need to clean that, what you do is you just take a scrap of paper and you just scribble it off until you don't see any color anymore. Your nib might be stained, but it's clean and it's not going to transfer on your next project. So that's what I had the alcohol marker for, just for smoothing out our shadows, especially if you have arthritis or other strength issues. So you don't have to forcibly do it. You could actually also use it on like the buttons to blend those colors together if you wanted to a little bit. So anytime you're feeling stress trying to blend, if it's hard on your hands, just go ahead and use alcohol marker. You can get them at any craft store. You go to Michael's and you ask one of their lovely sales associates for a colorless blending marker or just a clear alcohol marker, and they'll know what you're talking about. They sell them open stock as well as in packs. But if you're just doing color pencils and you have no desire to do like alcohol ink underpainting, because as you can see, it can be a little addictive to collect the alcohol markers. So you could just buy that one marker and, run away fast before you get in a situation like I'm in there with the big collection. But anyway, I don't think we have any more questions, do we? I don't see anything. Oh, there's a lot in the chat though. I'm not gonna be able to go see through that. But if you do have questions in the future, Michael's will post this tutorial on their YouTube channel and I will embed it in my blog and put the photos up too, so you'll have them to go by. And if you have questions and you ask me on my blog post, I will get back to you. Or if you ask me on my Instagram page, I can get back to you there too. I want to thank everyone for spending some of their evening with me. I know it's late and you have a lot of commitments in your lives, so it means the world to me that you'll spend some of your time with me and make art, because it gives our brain a little break. It gives us a relief from the stress of every day, and I'm so glad I can share that with you. So with that, I will say bye. Thank you, Derwent. Thank you, Michaels. Thanks for